Originally, Ferrari's first update package was supposed to arrive in Bahrain. However, in light of the problems that emerged both in Melbourne and in China, the technical department led at the OXR in Ferrari decided to bring forward the updates to the Japanese Grand Prix, that is already this weekend. And what is the key component? Certainly the car floor or the generation of aerodynamic load. In today's video, we go to look at the statements from inside Ferrari, what we should expect this weekend in Japan, also in terms of tires, the asphalt. Let's also look at the white Red Bull that will debut this weekend, the statements from Tsunoda and also Lawrence Stroll. Before we start, if you like the videos on the channel, please leave a like, subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any videos. And now let's get started right away. Ferrari is currently weighing two options, one of which entails a genuine update of the bottom that would involve significant changes in the management of aerodynamic flows, and official registration in Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile documents for the car presentation would be required. The second path instead is more conservative and involves small interventions on already approved elements which do not require formal documentation. A similar strategy was successfully adopted by McLaren in 2024, making slight changes to the diffuser area to achieve targeted improvements. The internal deadline is set for tomorrow. If all goes well, we could see a Ferrari with an updated bottom as early as the Japanese weekend. At the moment, it is not clear whether the new component will be available for both drivers or just one of the two. In short, the prancing horse is trying, and at Suzuka, a precise and stable single-seater will be needed on a track where every detail makes a difference. Now we must wait for the next few hours to see if the operation succeeds. There has been much talk about updates, likely to be seen as early as this weekend in Japan and Ferrari's internal management. However, John Elkann wanted to reiterate his full confidence in Frederic Vasseur, the team principal of the squad. I believe you can't judge a team principal after only 2 races. Continuity needs to be given, which Ferrari hasn't done in the past. And what should be done with Vasseur? Try to give him more time to demonstrate the potential of the team and from the new technicians hired by Vasseur himself. Following the 0-0 in China, the pressure on Frédéric Vasseur-Zera and his deputy Jérôme D'Ambrosio has skyrocketed. Criticism has not been lacking, and someone even dared to compare it with the past of Mattia Binotto at the helm of Ferrari. However, this comparison does not consider the current reality. Despite the slips, the management continues to believe in the work of the French manager. The disqualification of the two SF25s at the China Grand Prix has sparked discontent. The fans, disappointed, bitter, reacted harshly, and Vasseur's words, which tried to downplay the incident by talking about the desire to win, did not calm the spirits. On the contrary, they ended up fueling further controversy. An unconvincing justification that many have seen as a clumsy attempt to divert attention from the technical and managerial problems that led to the disaster in Shanghai. In such situations, it would perhaps have been more appropriate to acknowledge the mistakes and guarantee maximum effort to avoid similar incidents. In short, Vasseur's statements did not fully convince the presidency. According to internal sources, John Elkann would have preferred a more measured and responsible attitude, capable of reassuring fans and the environment rather than triggering new tensions. Defending oneself is legitimate, but it is also necessary to know when to be silent and work quietly. The memory of Pinotto, often evoked by the most critical fans, still weighs heavily. The former team principal, now in Sauber, has been accused multiple times of adopting an overly justificatory approach. Vasseur, in this delicate phase, will have to avoid falling into the same trap. But despite the difficult moment, Frédéric Vasseur still enjoys the full trust of President John Elkann and Ferrari management. The Frenchman undoubtedly remains central to Ferrari's 2025 project. The rumors about his alleged absence in Maranello, among other things, are explained by physical problems related to his back and not issues related to his role. The daily management is temporarily followed by Jérôme D'Ambrosio, but Vasseur is regularly expected at Suzuka, ready to lead the team at a key moment of the season. And Suzuka will be the first real test in a decisive triptych. Ferrari aims to reverse the course, bringing technical updates and a new mentality to the track. The recovery plan is there, and so is the support of the ownership, but now results are needed because the time for words, as often happens in Formula 1, is already over. Despite the difficult moment, Vasseur is supported by John Elkann, and I would say rightly so, because you still have to give time to the Frenchman and also to his technicians to demonstrate the potential on the track. The initial races reveal Ferrari's subpar performance in challenging circumstances. There were also some measurement errors, for example of Hamilton's skid, Leclerc's weight regarding the disqualifications in China. However, we have not seen the real potential of the single-seater on the track under favorable conditions. Perhaps the only example was Hamilton's sprint race in China. However, I would wait at least the next 3 races before passing judgment on this SF25. We have an important trio of races coming up. Let's see how Ferrari performs on completely different tracks. And many have also questioned the decision to adopt the pull road suspension. In fact, the pull road at the front of the SF25 represented a significant technical breakthrough for Ferrari. A solution that offers opportunities but at the same time hides complex pitfalls to manage. In particular, the suspension dynamics introduced to the new scheme have created a set of side effects that are limiting the potential of the single-seater, especially in the slower sections of the circuit. In the transition from the old push road scheme to the new pull road, the suspension geometry has completely transformed. In the current configuration, during cornering, not only does the lower triangle work in traction, but the upper triangle is subject to compression. This generates a moment along the roll axis that subtracts rotation from the car and complicates corner entry. This is a common issue with many single-seaters with this type of suspension, but in the case of Ferrari, it is having a greater impact than expected. To mitigate the phenomenon, the SF25 has adopted a solution shared with Red Bull, namely the steering arm is positioned at the bottom, parallel to the first link of the lower triangle. This allows the component to work with lower loads, favoring the rotation of the wheel group. Despite the adjustments, managing the compressive stress on the upper triangle continues to be a problem. The risk is a delay in the curve entry, with difficulty reaching the apex quickly, a symptom of a car that struggles to rotate precisely. Compared to Ferrari, McLaren, and Mercedes, who have adopted a more rearward position for the steering arm, favoring a different compromise between rotation and stability, the Maranello technicians have tried to compensate for the problems by intervening on springs, shock absorbers, and anti-roll bars, but with results that are still not definitive. Another critical point is the lateral load shift induced by the suspension mechanics. Depending on how the tie rod is anchored to the upright, the behavior of the car at low speeds changes. The closer the attachment point gets to the central axis of the hub carrier, the greater the mechanical effect in slow cornering will be. Ferrari has chosen a cleaner sole anchoring the arm directly to the hub without going through the upper triangle. A geometry that, while simplifying some solutions on one hand, on the other hand leads to less mechanical efficiency, especially in slow sections and more pronounced direction changes. The current front suspension of the SF25 requires constant compromises. The decision to work on roll stiffness to give more freedom to the front end has improved initial agility in curve, but has complicated the management of the bottom, which to work optimally needs a more stable platform. The real issue, however, lies in the arrangement of the links. It's not the pull road scheme itself that is wrong, but the complexity in the arrangement of the various arms and their impact on the transmitted forces. Ferrari aims to optimize their configuration by meticulously observing and understanding the McLaren MCL39. The overall balance of the SF25 is still too far back, and the lack of rotation is a secondary but evident effect. To recover performance, it is necessary to improve the management of load shifts, both longitudinal and transverse, by intervening on the entire mechanical and aerodynamic system of the car. The front problem is therefore closely linked to the rear one, and only with a global approach can the potential of the
single-seater Ferrari
hopes to do it already during the next trio of races, which promises to be crucial in determining the fate of the season. So the problem with the front suspension needs to be addressed, especially to the links and arms arranged and attached to the hub carrier. Not so much to the front suspension itself, which certainly needs time Ferrari to optimize it, but that's not the real problem. But we need to see what we should expect for the Japan Grand Prix, because there are some big changes compared to 2024. A 1.5 second improvement is expected at Suzuka compared to last year. And the paddock is buzzing because some teams will introduce the first technical innovations, while Red Bull and Haas will present special liveries. And it's the first of the Suzuka, Bahrain and Jeddah triple header. Here in Japan, we will have a new asphalt and the seasonal debut of the C1 tire. In fact, the circuit, Suzuka, has been partially resurfaced, particularly the stretch following the last chicane to the end of the first sector. This intervention should provide more grip precisely in one of the most technical areas of the track, where the difference is played out corner after corner. Pirelli has selected the hardest C1 compound along with the medium C2 and soft C3 for the tires. The Japanese circuit is one of the most severe for tires, classified with the maximum score of 5 along with Barcelona, Silverstone, Spa, Zandvoort and Losail. The C2 and C3, moreover, have been slightly softened compared to last season, making the behavior of the compounds a crucial issue for testing and racing. Pirelli has also revised the pressure values, lowering them both at the front and the rear compared to 2024. The simulations developed from the data provided by the teams estimate an improvement of about 1.5 seconds per lap compared to last year's times. A gain due to both the technical evolution of the single-seater and the increased grip offered by the new asphalt. However, it will be the free practice on Friday that will confirm these values, assessing the actual level of grip, the behavior of the compounds, and the effectiveness of the setup choices made by the teams. As happened in China, where the asphalt proved to be more performant than expected, surprises could also emerge in Suzuka. The Japanese track remains one of the most iconic and loved. Its figure-8 shape that alternates fast curves, changes of direction, and technical stretches is emblematic. Legendary places like the S of the first sector and the 130R have remained unchanged, but for 2025, some curbs have been retouched and new gravel has been inserted in turns 2, 7, 9, 14, and 17. In 2024, the race was won by Max Verstappen, followed by Perez and Sainz. A chaotic start with a red flag upset the strategies, with 7 drivers changing tires already on the first lap. The C1 was the most used compound, with the double pit stop proving to be the dominant strategy. Only Charles Leclerc managed to capitalize on a single pit stop, finishing 4th after starting 8th. Among the off-track novelties, Pirelli will present a special edition podium cup at Suzuka, inspired by Japanese culture. Red Bull arrives at Suzuka with a special white livery dedicated to Japan, particularly to Honda, and arrives with a Yuki Tsunoda, who will face his first race as an official driver for Red Bull. The two RB21S of Max Verstappen and Yuki Tsunoda will take to the track with a completely white livery inspired by the legendary Honda RA272, which achieved its first Formula One victory in 1965 at the Mexican Grand Prix with Ricky Ginta. The Suzuka weekend represents the last home Grand Prix for Honda as an official partner of Red Bull. At the end of the 2025 season, the collaboration between the two companies will end. Honda will move on from Stone Martin, while Red Bull will continue with its own engine department, namely Red Bull Powertrains. The livery is a visual and symbolic tribute to this winning alliance, and not only that. On the nose and tail of the cars, there is a large red H, in addition to a special logo dedicated to the 60th anniversary of the RA272's victory. The logo will be visible on all 4 Honda-powered single-seaters on the grid, including the 2 Racing Bulls team chassis. And Christian Horner stated, "Our relationship with Honda deserves to be celebrated. It brought the team one of the most dominant periods in our history." Max won 4 titles with a Honda power unit, and the reliability of the Japanese engine contributed to the most successful season in Formula One history in 2023. This livery is our way of saying thank you. Koji Watanabe, president of Honda Racing Corporation, also expressed great emotion. It's really special to see the RA272 come to life on the Red Bull in this last year together. Our journey will remain in the history of Formula One. In short, there will also be several events during the Japan Grand Prix, including an exhibition of the 90s Honda NSX in Red Bull livery, a show car with special livery. There will be several rallies with Japanese car enthusiasts. But in my opinion, the most important thing right now is to hear statements from Yuki Tsunoda, who will be racing his first home Grand Prix in Japan at Suzuka, with Red Bull celebrating the last race with Honda. And Tsunoda is pumped for Suzuka and has stated the RB21 doesn't seem so challenging and he's aiming for the podium. In addition to the debated choice that has fueled the debate in the paddock, including Verstappen, who was against Lawson's departure at his side, now for the Japanese driver this represents a great opportunity, but at the same time a lot of pressure. And Tsunoda has stated, "Racing for Red Bull in Japan seems like a sign of fate. Honestly, I never expected to debut with Red Bull at the Japanese Grand Prix." It's the last year of collaboration with Honda, so it really does seem like a sign of fate. Everything fell into place perfectly to get me here today. Of course, my goal is the podium, even though I know it won't be easy. And Tsunoda added, "I know it won't be simple at the beginning. I need to first understand how the RB21 performs compared to the Racing Bulls. If I manage to have fun from FP1, I believe the results will come. The podium would be incredible, but first we need to build confidence." Tsunoda tested the RB21 on the simulator after briefly experiencing it in the post-season 2024 Abu Dhabi tests. Initial impressions were positive. After 2 days on the simulator, I honestly didn't find it very challenging to drive. The front is very responsive as I expected, but it didn't give me any strange feelings. My driving style is different from Max's, so I want to work on a personal setup and grow step by step. It's an extraordinary opportunity, but I've stayed focused from the very first moment. I had to immediately deal with the simulator, seats, preparations. I didn't have time to stop and realize everything. Now I want to thank the people who have supported me and work hard with the engineers. It will be an incredibly exciting race, but I feel ready. Honestly, it would be impressive if Yuki Tsunoda in his first race makes it into the top 10 or top 5 with that Red Bull. Aiming for the podium, as he himself declared, seems very optimistic. Especially considering that as of today, Red Bull is not the leading force. In this case, McLaren is the leading car, not the one to beat. Tsunoda's optimism seems misplaced. In this case, by the way, the fact that his driving style is different from Max's is a bit of a red flag. When talking about Red Bull, it's better to have a driving style similar to the lead driver in order to try to emulate, even if on a small scale, Max's driving style. But I'm curious to see how his home Grand Prix debut will go. He will have a lot of pressure not only from Red Bull, but also the support of the fans. However, we must conclude by talking about Aston Martin, in fact. Stroll gives up the shares, but the commitment in Formula One increases. Following the circulation of recent rumors, an official statement has been released clarifying Lawrence Stroll's position. The Canadian entrepreneur not only remains the leader of the project, but strengthens his presence within the Aston Martin Lagonda Group, rising to 33% of the shares and contributing to a financial strengthening of over £125 million. The operation involves the accession of some shares by Aston Martin Lagonda to the Aston Martin Aramco Formula One team. At the same time, Stroll has commissioned the Rain Group, an American investment bank, to identify a strategic investor to take over Aston Martin Lagonda as part in the team, with the aim of ensuring added value in the long term, both in terms of sports and industry. According to the statement, the intent is clear: to ensure the stable and competitive presence of Aston Martin in Formula One for the decades to come. And Stroll stated, "These operations show that Aston Martin's place on the Formula One grid is more secure than ever. We have renewed the sponsorship and licensing contract with AMF1, confirming that the Aston Martin brand and its historic British racing green colours will continue to race in Formula One for a long time." Stroll's journey in Formula One started in 2018 when he took over Force India, first transforming it into Racing Point, and then from 2021 into the current Aston Martin. In 2020, he led the investment of £182 million in Aston Martin Lagonda, officially bringing the British brand into the World Championship. Stroll's vision for the future is ambitious, with the team preparing for the 2026 technical regulations. New Silverstone infrastructure, a Honda Power Unit partnership, and the arrival of legendary technician Adrian Newey signal the team's determination to make a significant leap in quality. The project at Aston Martin is constantly evolving, and with these new investments, Stroll confirms his desire to make the English team a protagonist in the future of Formula One. For those who thought Stroll sold his Aston Martin shares due to decreasing Formula One commitment, well, quite the opposite actually. Stroll wants to relaunch the Aston Martin team and try to keep it within the grid for the next decades. Red Bull is clearly aiming to compete for top positions with high-profile technicians like Adrian Newey and the reliable, competitive Honda engine. While initially not as strong, the Honda engine has become a benchmark in recent years. And moreover, be careful that a prominent driver could arrive, like Max Verstappen, or maybe Aston Martin could take from some other team, because in a few years, Alonso will definitely retire. Tell me in the comments your opinion on all the topics we covered in the video. As always, I remind you to leave a like and subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any videos that come out here on the channel. I provide daily updates on all Formula One news with a focus on Ferrari-related topics. I'm leaving you with more videos for now. See you in the next video from Rastaduto.